1.5 laps. That is the number Fred Vasseur reached for in Miami back in May when he was asked why it had taken Ferrari so long to move Lewis Hamilton past his own teammate. "It didn't take so long," he said. 1.5 laps or something like this. Remember that measurement? Because on Sunday at Zandvoort it came back, and this time nobody had to guess at the arithmetic. This time the whole world watched the clock run. Start with the sentence that got everyone's attention yesterday. Lap 43 of the Dutch Grand Prix, Hamilton sitting behind Charles Leclerc, on tires roughly 4 laps fresher, on a circuit where every driver on the grid will tell you overtaking is close to impossible. He keys the radio and says, flatly, "Great way of wasting time, guys. Good job." Motorsport.com reported it within the hour. Sky Sports Formula One built a segment around it. It is sarcastic, it is aimed at his own pit wall, and it is the kind of line that gets clipped and shared until Tuesday. But it is not new. That is the part almost nobody said out loud yesterday. Roll back to the 3rd of May, the Miami Grand Prix. Hamilton is running 8th. Leclerc is running 7th, directly ahead of him. The two Ferraris are on split strategies, Hamilton on the medium, Leclerc on the hard. Hamilton believes he has the pace to chase down Kimi Antonelli up the road and asks to be let by. The team starts assessing, and as the assessment drags on, Hamilton comes back on the radio and suggests, in that same register, that the squad should have a tea break while they are at it. Same driver, same teammate, same request, same sarcasm, 4 months apart. That is the story of this video, and I want to build it properly because the easy version of it is wrong and the useful version takes a bit of patience. If you want the useful version, subscribe, because the next chapter of this lands at the next race, and I would rather you saw it than heard about it. And tell me in the comments which country you are watching from. I ask every video, I read every one of them, and it is genuinely the most interesting thing in the comment section. Now, who is answering these questions? Because the answer matters more than the question does. Fred Vasseur has run Scuderia Ferrari since the start of 2023. Before that, Sauber. Before that, Renault. Before all of it, he ran ART Grand Prix in the junior categories, which is where a large slice of the current Formula One grid learned to drive racing cars. He is not a man who improvises in front of a microphone, and he is not a man who gets rattled by a hostile question. He signed Hamilton. He sold Maranello on the idea of signing Hamilton. And he has spent this entire season managing the oldest problem the Italian team has, which is two drivers who both have a rational claim on being the priority. So when he explains himself, the explanation is worth reading carefully. Here is Miami, quoted by Formula1.com in May. "It didn't take so long," he said. "It was 1.5 laps or something like this." And when you have two cars, not with the same strategy, the first thing for me to understand is if it's faster when you are behind due to the DRS or not. Read that second sentence again, because that is the engineering core of it. He is saying that a car sitting in the toe of another car looks quicker than it is. Before you spend a position, you have to establish whether the driver behind is genuinely faster or whether he is being flattered by the slipstream. That is a real problem. Every strategist in the pit lane deals with it. It is not an excuse, it is a variable. Now here is Sunday at Zandvoort, quoted by Grand Prix 247 after the race. The story with Louis Vasseur said was that at one stage we were trying to go to the end and I think it would have been a good call also. But probably we lost 1 second with Charles. The target when you go to the end is not this one, and with what has happened after, you can always rewrite the race. Different words, same shape. In both cases, the team principal's answer is that Ferrari was measuring something before it acted, and that the measurement was reasonable, and that the delay was smaller than it looked. In Miami, the thing being measured was whether the toe was faking Hamilton's pace. At Zandvoort, the thing being measured was whether Hamilton should stop at all or run to the flag. So, follow the chain. What do these two explanations actually cover, and what do they leave standing? They cover why a delay existed. Both times, yes, there was a genuine variable to resolve. They cover the team principal's own estimate of the cost. In Miami, 1.5 laps. At Zandvoort, 1 second. They do not cover why the estimate and the driver's experience of it are so far apart. Hamilton did not say 1 second. Hamilton said to Sky Sports Formula One after the race that he lost several seconds behind Charles, and they do not cover the outcome, which is where Miami gets uncomfortable because in Miami, Ferrari did eventually make the swap, and then Hamilton could not catch Antonelli, and so the team reversed the positions back. Leclerc was informed. Hamilton apparently had not been told yet at that point. When the instruction reached him, he followed it. So at Miami, the sequence was, he asks, they deliberate, they act. It does not work, they undo it. And at Zandvoort, the sequence was, he asks, they deliberate, they call Leclerc to the pits. Leclerc stays out one more lap according to G-Blog's account of the radio, and only then is the road clear. Hamilton took fourth at that point, on lap 43. Now hold that thought, because a third team was solving the identical problem on the same afternoon, and they solved it in front of everyone. Mercedes, same race, same day, 7 laps from the finish. George Russell running second, Kimi Antonelli behind him on fresher rubber, with a live chance of attacking Lando Norris for the win. Mercedes made the call on lap 66. Russell questioned it on the radio. He moved over anyway, into Tarzan. Both drivers said afterwards they agreed with the decision. Both finished on the podium, second and third. I am going to narrate the difference without adjectives, because it does not need any. Mercedes identified the situation and resolved it inside 1 lap. Ferrari, in the same race, took from lap 35, when Hamilton cleared Oscar Piastri and arrived behind Leclerc, to lap 43. That is 8 laps. And in fairness, which this channel requires of itself, those 2 calls are not equivalent. Mercedes had a clean binary with a single obvious target ahead. Ferrari had an undercut threat behind, a group of cars ahead, and an open question about whether Hamilton was stopping again at all. Vasseur said as much, that going to the end would also have been a good call. Taken one at a time in a debrief room, every individual Ferrari decision on Sunday can be justified. That is exactly why the Miami comparison matters. 1 slow call is a race. 2 slow calls 4 months apart, with the same 2 drivers and the same sarcastic radio register from the same driver, is a question about how this team makes decisions under time pressure. Then the timeline moves, and this is the part that changes the weight of everything I have just said. Because between Miami and Zandvoort, Hamilton's position in this championship changed completely. In Miami, he was arguing over 8th place. On Sunday, he was second in the drivers' standings, with Antonelli more than 50 points up the road and 12 rounds remaining. The thing being deliberated is no longer a couple of points on a Sunday in Florida. It is podium finishes in a title campaign. And Hamilton said so himself, in plain language to Sky. To win championships, he said, you have to pick up every point. And then, in the same answer, the sentence that ties this whole video together. He said that today, he lost several seconds behind Charles, which he thinks ultimately would have made the difference at the end, but that they would take it offline. Take it offline. Which means the conversation that actually matters has not happened in public, and may never. So here's the question I want from you, and I want it as a vote, because you split almost exactly down the middle on this in the comments last time. If you are running Ferrari and your second car is holding up your first car, do you make the swap immediately on instinct and accept the strategic cost? Or do you spend a lap and a half establishing whether the pace is real before you spend a position? Like this video if you swap on instinct. Comment if you measure first. There is no free answer, which is the only reason it is worth asking. Subscribe while you are there. Now, the arithmetic, because a lap and a half is not an abstraction. It converts. Vasseur's own Miami number was 1 lap and a half. His own Zandvoort number was 1 second. Hamilton's number for the same 8 laps was several seconds. Those 3 figures come from 2 people who were both there, on the same team, describing the same kind of event, and they do not agree. And on Sunday, the gap that mattered at the end was Russell defending 3rd place. Hamilton got a virtual safety car on lap 55 when Esteban Ocon stopped at turn 3. Ferrari pitted him for softs. When the restart came, Russell was on old tires with Antonelli and Hamilton bearing down on him, and Russell told his own pit wall, according to Sports Illustrated's lap-by-lap coverage, that he thought they had lost a double podium. He was talking about Hamilton. Mercedes moved Russell out of Antonelli's way. Hamilton had to do it himself. Lap 69, a full lunge into Tarzan, stopped just short of contact, another run through turn 10. Then a second virtual safety car for debris after the 2 Williams cars touched, which killed his momentum. Green flag with 2 laps left. He attacked again. He never got through. 1 position, 3 points. In a season where he is chasing a deficit of more than 50. There is a structural point underneath this, and it is not about either driver. Hamilton also told Sky that Ferrari has been losing between 3 and 5 tenths on the straight this season, depending on the circuit, and that it is a hard deficit to overcome through the corners. If that is your car, then track position and clean air are not luxuries. They are the only two assets you have. A team with a straight line advantage can afford to deliberate because it can pass later. A team without one cannot because there is no later, which means the cost of a slow decision is not fixed across the grid. It is higher for Ferrari than for almost anyone else, and it was highest of all at Zandvoort, where you cannot overtake. That is the argument for moving quickly. Here is the argument against it, made as well as I can make it. Ferrari has two drivers who are both right now delivering. Leclerc finished second in Saturday's sprint at Zandvoort, ahead of Norris. He is not a number two, and treating him as one in August, with 12 races left and a Constructors' Championship still live, is a decision with consequences that run past this season and into contract conversations Vasseur has to have. A team principal who burns a driver's goodwill to gain 3 points in a race his car could not win has not been clever. He has been reckless. And Vasseur made the point himself on Sunday that once you know what happened afterwards, you can always rewrite the race. He is right about that. Every one of us doing this analysis is doing it with information he did not have on lap 36. But that argument has a limit, and the limit is the pattern. If the same driver is making the same complaint in the same tone in May and again in August, the team's answer cannot be that each individual instance was defensible. At some point, the instances stop being separate. So, honestly, what do we know and what are we guessing? We know both radio messages because both were broadcast. We know both of Vasseur's public explanations because both were given to named outlets on the record and both are dated. We know Ferrari swapped the cars in Miami and then reversed it. We know Leclerc was called in at Zandvoort and stayed out an additional lap. We know Mercedes handled the same problem in one lap on the same afternoon. What we do not know is what was said on the channels that were not broadcast, or how the instruction to Leclerc was actually worded, or whether anyone inside Ferrari considers Miami and Zandvoort to be the same event at all. Hamilton says it is going offline. That is not a public process. Is there a pattern here of Ferrari being slow to protect the driver who is in the championship fight? 2 dated instances is enough to make that a legitimate question, and I think it is one. It is not enough to make it a conclusion, and I am not going to hand you one. Ask it in the comments. Argue about it. But the honest position today is that this is 2 data points and a coincidence of tone, not a proven habit. What is not in doubt is what Hamilton said at the end of that same Sky interview, which was not a complaint at all. My goal, he said, is to try and lead this team to the championship, and we have got some work to do for sure. In May, he asked to be let past for 8th place and made a joke about T. In August, he asked for the same thing for a podium and made a joke about wasted time. In between, he became the 2nd driver in the World Championship and started using the word lead about a team that is not, as of Sunday, moving at his speed. 12 rounds are left, and the next one is Monza, where Ferrari's 3 to 5 tenths of straight-line deficit is not a talking point. It is the entire weekend, and where the Tifosi will be watching both red cars on the same piece of tarmac with a very particular set of expectations. If there is a third instance of this, that is where it happens, and there will be no ambiguity about it at all.